call this meeting to order and find that we have established a quorum. Before we move to other parts of our agenda, I'd like to do a couple of quick pieces of business. One is to thank the veterans for providing us with a lot of good information about the broad range of services that they provide here for those who have served our country, and gave us some cards as well in case one of the veterans may need some services. We can distribute those to them. So thank you very much to the vets, all the folks who manage this. Also, I would like to use the prerogative of the presiding officer for just one moment. If we could, I suspect we may hear some more about this, but I would like to at least acknowledge through a moment of silence the passing of a community member, Desiree Quintero. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We appreciate that. We have an agenda in front of us, and we are, if you are following along on our agenda, we are on Roman numeral 2, and that is the public comment.
So I'm Keith McHenry, and because of our friend Desiree was killed as a result of a vote that both started this organization that you're sitting at now, and the eviction of Ross Camp. People, as we had testified in federal court, would not have a place to stay. And Desiree was one of those people who did not have a place to stay and went to the Poganet, like many others in Ross Camp, or into the doorways, as you'll see when you leave out here tonight. If you go down Front Street or Cedar, you'll see that our friends from Ross Camp sleeping in the doorways, as we told the federal judge would be the case. But Susie O'Hara and other members of the city government refused to negotiate with us. I'm almost done.
Could I ask you a quick question? You and I know each other well, and I respect your point of view. If we could not use names, that would be helpful. Would you be kind enough to not do that?
Possible.
If you want
No, these are murderers, and we need to call out the murderers as the murderers.
Okay. Keith, I would request again that you not do it that way. Would you be kind enough to make reference, if you want to make reference
The deputy, the city manager, the city manager's office, the city attorney's office, the mayor, we know all the people that were involved in this criminal act that resulted in other deaths, but most famously in the death of the main plaintiff in the federal case trying to stop this outrage from happening. And so now, because we have lost Desiree, we are going to have a very strong campaign, which we will not let up on. And so we have 10 demands, and Alicia Kuhl, the president of the Santa Cruz Homeless Union, will be reading these 10 demands, and we're going to do them, and we hope that this organization endorses these 10 demands tonight. Thank you.
I'd like to start by also saying that we are running a campaign that has to do with nothing about us without us. And so we're also requesting that you take a vote and put 2 members of the California Homeless Union and include them in this CACH committee. And in addition to that, I'd like to start with the demands. Number 1, we're requesting a moratorium on enforcement of all laws designed to or having the effect of criminalizing the homeless, including the issuing of citations for being in a park after dark, trespass on public property, and the blocking of sidewalks, dismissal of all pending charges against persons who were forced to break these laws in order to survive. Number 2, immediate opening of the Civic Auditorium and other public buildings vacant at night as emergency shelter for the elderly, disabled, and vulnerable folks this winter. Public disclosure of all vacant city-owned, city-controlled, and tax delinquent properties and their designation as available emergency housing for the homeless. Moratorium on evictions of low-income renters facing homelessness, immediate opening of the city and citizen organized survival campgrounds for the winter. Number 3, full compliance with the legal requirements of Martin versus Boise, the decision by the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals that prohibits enactment and enforcement of laws targeting the homeless where no alternative indoor shelter has been provided. We have a severe lack of that in Santa Cruz, as you all know. If you don't, I'm here to let you know. The firing of Santa Cruz Chief of Police Andrew Mills, City Manager Martine Burnell, and Assistant City Manager Susie O'Hara. They contributed to the narrative and the lies that closed the Ross camp, and they contributed to the death of my friend. She wasn't offered any alternative housing, and she died in the podium because of that. Number 5, fully restore the rights to those living at 1220 River Street. Provide showers, drinking water, free access for those who make 1220 River their home, and respect the civil rights of all who live at that city-run camp. Terminate the contract with the Salvation Army and recognize the rights and abilities of the 1220 River Street residents to manage themselves. We don't need a nanny. Number 6, end the seizure of homeless people's personal survival property. It's happening on a weekly basis. It's happening over on Coral Street. We're having winter supply drives weekly to replace the survival gear that is being taken from people. I worry that people will be freezing to death. It's extremely cold tonight, and we're constantly replacing that stuff. You can order the city to stop doing that. Number 7, authorize private entities to sponsor portable toilets, provide 24-hour access to public bathrooms at the Soquel and Locust Street garages, and restore full access to Loud Nelson bathrooms with the code if necessary. We need bathrooms. It's not rocket science. Number 8, demand that Chief Mills, Mayor Watkins, and the City Manager Burnell publicly denounce vigilante violence and harassment against those who cannot afford housing, and remove all anti-homeless hate speech on the city websites and social media platforms. We know that there have been threats against the lives of the homeless. We're just asking our police chief to make a public announcement that vigilante violence will not be tolerated against our homeless. Number 9, acknowledge the legitimacy of homes on wheels, parking in industrial zones, add sanitary facilities and trash pickups, and end the towing of people's homes, even if they are not registered. They just announced that if you have over 5 parking tickets or your registration is over 5 months old, they will be towing your vehicle away. It's one of the last affordable housing options, and it will cause more homelessness. You can ask the city council to not do that. And number 10, designate October 27th as Desiree Quintero Day in the city of Santa Cruz. I feel like it's the least that can be done. Copies of this have been provided to City Council. They're rough copies. The better copies are online, but I have copies of this. These are serious demands. I mean it. Things are going to happen if these are not met. Thank you.
Progressives celebrated the victory of Councilmember Justin Cummings, whose name I will use. I believe in using names. No offense meant to you or this group. Last year, they welcomed his selection as vice mayor over the old guard reactionary Cynthia Matthews. Promises of accessibility, accountability, profound reform for renters and the poor all seem to be part of Justin Cummings' election campaign. The disillusionment has deepened in the months that followed. Protection for those facing eviction is essential. Whose vote blocked just eviction protections last January? On the second reading, it was Justin Cummings who packed with Mayor Watkins' minority faction in killing those protections. Just last week, whose vote refused again to bridge the gap for Section 8 seniors and disabled being dumped in Bixby Street? Justin Cummings. Protection for tenants means protection from the growing visible homelessness that threatens even more sharply as winter descends. In April, Ross Camp activists warned that the elderly, the vulnerable, and the women there were being displaced without adequate shelter. As landlords are now threatening to do and doing, who falsely promised first a cleanup of the Ross Camp and adequate shelter before its residents were sent fleeing to the sidewalks, the beaches, the storefronts, the parks, the neighborhoods, and the Greenbelt? Justin Cummings. Assistant City Manager Susie O'Hara's repeated claims of non-existent shelter availability have been aired before City Council again and again without challenge. Her false narrative supports that we're doing all we can, mythology of city manager Martin Bernal, the most powerful man in our city. Methodically repeated to justify the talk without action, and that is our concern about this group, agenda of the Watkins-Matthews minority. It wasn't just Cummings who placed trust in the false promises of O'Hara and Bernal, but it was Cummings' vote that was the key in tipping the scales and putting so many unhoused folks in danger with the reduction of that camp. Whose key vote has delayed any meaningful data on landlord accountability throughout the summer, because it is tenants that are going to become homeless and that this group will have to deal with. And then allowed landlords to refuse to provide this important information. Justin Cummings, who denied the pleas of the Clearview Court residents fighting corporate developer greed in the nearby developer scam widely opposed? Was it not Justin Cummings who raised the false specter of an imagined lawsuit to refuse to wait for environmental review of the project, without which many claim there is sure to be a real lawsuit? Justin Cummings. Who won't meet with activists concerned with the tenant and homeless emergency? Some of us. As a community radio activist for 25 years, I've had regular interviews with mayors and council members, including those with whom I've sharply disagreed, like Cynthia Matthews. Cummings has not been available. Who won't hold regular office hours or answer emails from homeless advocacy organizations like HUF, Homeless United for Friendship and Freedom, or Conscience in Action? Justin Cummings. How many long-term tenants will be forced out of lodging by unaccountable landlords reaping comfortable profits from their homes in this housing crisis? How many of these will be driven into homelessness as the Ross Camp homeless were? How many will be denied the protection of internal community mutual aid and broader community assistance as the Ross Camp homeless were until the Ross Camp was destroyed, which does not exist now. We do not have any camp. Deep into the Pogonip made dangerous with high winds. Ask Justin Cummings. Last month, those winds felled a tree there that killed, as you've heard, the lead plaintiff at the Ross Camp lawsuit, Desiree Quintero. Nice to have a moment of silence. Better to have a moment of talk. Even better to have a moment of action around this issue. The 1,000, 2,000 folks outside face full shelters, long waiting lists, and high barriers while you talk. Whose vote delayed any consideration of survival campgrounds and sent them to you? Essentially a talk shop. Justin Cummings. A tree ended the life of a woman trying to survive. Justin Cummings' vote. Whose name will the memory of the community etch on the tree that killed her? If we are to be fair, it must be that of Vice Mayor and Council Member Justin Cummings. What kind of real protections can city residents expect from avaricious developers, a complacent staff, a powerful, unaccountable city manager, and a mayor who excludes key issues from the agenda, but lets you talk about them at length, of course. 4 votes can change all this by firing the guilty parties and reforming the rules. Speak loudly, but your words must somehow pierce the silence and the procedural barriers you're going to face at this committee. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
First, thank you for serving and giving of your time and your energy to reach very important solutions to this deep human challenge. And I want to thank you, Rafael, because he came to the Santa Cruz community meeting and invited all of us to this meeting. So I thought that that was very important because I didn't know about it until then. My concern or my request is that you inform us of what progress you've reached in reaching out to state, county, and government entities who have wealth of facilities and land within the city limits and surrounds to help address homelessness. I also request that any placement of camps be away from schools, away from children's playgrounds. So thank you very much.
Homeless,
Okay. Yeah.
and thank you for your service. I'm a homeless vet,
Thank you.
by choice.
Thank you, sir.
I just want to say, I go back to some of the people like Don when he ran the youth restaurant. My name is Richard Lewis. I like to be called Grandpa. I'm going to talk tonight on something that some of you remember, Emily Riley, and at the police community room, we had a small core group. And what they had was Women Rise for Peace. I'm going to propose that within this committee, the relationship we revisit Women Rise for the Homeless, would include us in that. So tonight isn't a big show and tell, but I have ideas. And I made these up to present to the Cabrillo students, and we're going to try to follow some things up. I invite anybody a cup of coffee anytime at the Silver Spur on me, and try to create the relationships. So long range, we come at proactive prevention, so we don't have to deal with the end result of the homeless. We build on what's possible here in Santa Cruz. I call my partner, you know Ted Burke, from the dish room to the boardroom. Where could you not find partnership with the county, the probation department, 170 young people on probation? Start with 20 of them to own a business. If any of you were here before the earthquake, you would have come in and bought a hamburger for 99 cents on up. Las Churrales. I still show you what those young people said. So I don't know any of you, really, except my friend here. But I'm 82. I call myself a Gray Panther. Let's pass on our wisdom of this city in such a way that you could leave tonight. We've got people from the city. The city could create a next generation, a commission. How about that 18 to 40 at UC and at Cabrillo doing applied research? So, you know, I don't have a speech, I don't write anything down, but I know tomorrow when we can get to the right people, there's an initiative that comes from Give a Damn. Start the empathy, because we got the apathy. Now, you can't do it in 3 minutes. I couldn't even do it in 15 minutes. But if any of you go to SSCCC, I'm at the table to pull together beyond here where the money is, Silicon Valley. You do the research. Maybe you heard today that of $1 billion from Apple and Google with an organization, if anyone wants the job, they're going to have 110,000 to coordinate housing in 5 counties. Where's the outreach from the city staff or the county staff beyond what we can do right here? So I'm honored that you listen. At 82, I don't want to recreate one more, but I represent this as a vision called Grupo Amistad. And I ask any of you to go to the commission, Latino Affairs Commission. See that they haven't had a quorum for 5 times and they meet every other month. That's research. Get some people there at the next meeting at the United Way. So thank you.
My name is Cruz Casby, and I'm specifically here in front of CACH tonight. Hi Don, hi Stoney, hi Serge. I know some of you have Frank. I think your name's Frank, right? I'm not calling you by their own name. So I just want to ask that the CACH make a recommendation. I don't really know your process. So obviously I don't know your process, but so I'm just asking for this, not really knowing how viable it is for you to do. But I started out in the mental health field, and I got tremendously interested in what was happening in the country in terms of economics. And when I started noticing that the homeless were starting to build up a lot of homeless people in Berkeley, I started investigating that. And what I truly believe is that we need transitional encampments as ASAP, and whatever other facilities we have that are happening, that's fine. I'm not personally very interested in those, let's just say, just to kind of keep it short. What I am very, very interested in is transitional encampments that are self-governing by homeless adults. Today, I'll just use this as a quick example. We were doing a tabling and a protest over at City Hall today in honor of Desiree. And a woman came up and she just started talking to Lucero and I about her experience. And she just started rattling off a lot of things, like the registrations at a certain facility are so far behind. They're in September is where they are, and so she's still not registered there. She started talking about how her stuff disappeared, and when she asked them for her sleeping bag, they gave her someone else's sleeping bag that was sort of old and matted up. The reason I'm just giving you these two quick little examples is because when I investigated the shelters, I found it to be really, really difficult to stay in there. The only reason I was able to stay in there was because the weather was so bad that it made it beneficial for me to be in there. And I was doing firsthand observation as well. So I just want to say, as somebody who started out their career life in the human services, I didn't go down that path completely, but I am deeply and profoundly interested, not only in mental health issues, but in the sense of people who have challenges, but in terms of the health of our society, and the health of those who are struggling so hard that they're having breaks and difficulties. And I really feel that the shelters that we're providing, if you really understand what's going on in terms of what people's needs are, what issues they might have, what difficulties they might have in being in any kind of group, let alone a particular shelter, I really think that the transitional encampments are incredibly viable. They're just a way to keep people safe, and specifically things that happened, like the falling tree that killed Desiree, that could be avoided. And I think other cities have done this. I do believe that we have the space. I do believe that the city was kind of funneling Drew's idea of the transitional encampment. It was a predetermined agenda, and I could talk about that because I actually know the facts behind that. They determined they were going to funnel it down to Depot Park so that they could foster a lot of dissent against the transitional encampment. So I could talk about the Santa Cruz Together meeting on March 13th, where they talked about their plan and how they were going to do things on city council. They do have allies on city council. It's extraordinarily political. And so I just want you all to know that it is so important that you don't remain naive about the actual obstructions that are long happening by the city staff and by certain groups in the city, and they have their representatives on city council. So just to end, that all aside, I really feel that one of the fail-safe measures that we could do is the transitional encampment. And I'm just going to end with one quick example.
Sure.
A friend of mine who was taking part in an interfaith shelter, they would get out at the bus stop below Peace United Church, and then they would have to walk up this hill. It's not doable. Back in the day before the Reagan cuts, when I was working in human services, because we had the funding and the money and the political will, we were able to make sure that that kind of thing didn't happen. The churches are doing their level best. I think they're going the extra mile. I really do, but I don't think that the kind of programs that are out there are anything like adequate. So I just wanted to say my ask for you tonight is to just as soon as possible urge City Council to find a real place, and I believe they're here, that's not too far outside the city, that's somewhere close by where they could have a transitional encampment that's self-governing for the homeless. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Lucero Luna, and in 2015, I came here from Ventura County in my vehicle, and I was at the Homeless Service Center for a couple of months, and I helped with volunteering and everything there. And then when the services ended, the 40 to 60 bed daily, like residing Canalori, whatever, and the meals ended, and then so that all the rest of the people ended up in the streets, and there was more victimization, criminalization. So we started Freedom Sleepers, protesting as a civil disobedience at City Hall weekly. And unfortunately, I was banned from Pacific Avenue Garden Mall, from Laurel to River Street and Front Street, and so I couldn't do what I used to do, my advocacy outdoors, and take photos and be a witness of that and collecting everyone's citations. So I left to Ventura County, and I came last Friday because of this, to show support. And what I wanted to share is that some of these shelters criminalized us. So I was arrested at the Homelessness Center because I exceeded my time in the shower. And that was a handicapped shower. And the individual opened the door, threw the towel on my face and my clothes, and refused to give me time, privacy to address. And the police officers, two of them males, around the corner did not, what do you call it? I requested that they will ask her to leave so I can have some privacy to dress, and they just laughed and just ignored me. So I did call the F word and the B word because I just, anyhow. And so I got trespassing, offensive words, and because I was a freedom seeker participant or member, she runs across the street, she asked me where they take me away, and says, "Excuse me, officer, I didn't want to tell this, but you hit me." So I have battery right here since 2016, okay? And I have a warrant here because of that individual. Yeah, so, and unfortunately, when I was released from the jail, I went to pick up my mail. She was going to refuse my mail, and I said, "Oh, well, I'll call the FBI Department of Justice because you don't have the right." But she's wearing a proud Marine. And I'm sorry to say that. But see, I used to volunteer in an organization called the Homelessness Foundation, and I told her I will never say thank you to you. I was not able to participate in the interfaith program because I was participating weekly at the Freedom Sleepers Eve. So I just wanted to share some of my experience. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. I've not been homeless, but I've been around these parts for the last, half my life. And this is a beautiful part of the world. And I'm sure, since I don't know exactly how you're all working this out, I will tell you that I was at community TV the other evening, and I heard yourself, and I don't think I recognize anyone else there, but speak about how you'd like to get more involvement with the county and get some programs going. And I think that would be a great idea because there's so many places in the county that the homeless may be interested in having this transitional camp. And what we need in the city now is also hygiene. I heard that mentioned. I would urge you to stress that we need to get that going. Programs for more hygiene, and definitely there's no bathroom facilities after 10 p.m. at night. And I mentioned that in one of my questions at Community TV. Also, the idea that why should the state care if people are living in their cars and the registration is expired? Why does that give a right for an officer to tow their car and make them homeless if there's no other alternative? So what we need are better alternatives, and I know the homeless are determined. I'm not part of the homeless union. I'm just tired of seeing my friends and some people I've gotten to know over the past few years die needlessly. I had a friend who used to play music on the street every week, had diabetes. He had great charisma, great voice. And he wasn't able to get help when he needed it, when some night it was too cold or whatever, and that just happens to people that don't have any other choices or resources. So please, I urge you, I know you're doing the best, but do more than that and get some programs going in this county for the homeless.
Thank you. At the CACH's first meeting, 2 people were elected to the CACH who are experiencing homelessness, exactly for the reason that the speaker indicated. So thank you to all of you for that. We are on Roman numeral number 3.
2 is not enough, we'd like 2 additional. We're asking that you make an amendment to include 2 people from the Santa Cruz chapter of the California Homelessness Union. We'd like to be included.
Okay, meaning I
2
understand.
additional chairs.
No, okay, meaning I understand what you're saying, and so we'll put that in the minutes. I will talk to the co-chairs about that. As you know, we cannot do anything in that regard that isn't noticed on the agenda this evening. You weren't asking for that. But note has been made, and we will have some kind of response as we move along. Is that all right with you for tonight?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We are on Roman numeral 4. This is a nominations to replace our former colleague, Katie Woolsey, who was on the CACH from August through a week or so ago, a couple weeks ago. We have received nominations, and
So I move to nominate Cynthia Hawthorne.
is there a second? Is there a second? No second. Anybody else want to offer nomination? Yes.
I would nominate Natalie Swords.
Say it again.
Natalie Swords, she's in that packet.
Yes. Okay, is there a second? Okay. Are there any other nominations?
Melanie McManus.
Excuse me?
Melanie McManus.
Melanie McManus. Is there a second? There is no second.
So I would like to second
There's a motion and a second. We have 2 nominees. Sir.
I'll second Brooke's nomination, just as a courtesy to give us a chance to consider all the options.
We have a second for a motion and a second for 3 nominees.
My name is Cynthia Hawthorne. I have been working this last year with the Downtown Streets team, and it's been my honor to get to know individuals as opposed to people talk about people who live outside some amorphous group, but really these are very important. It's very important to understand the individual needs of individual people. I'm a trained policy wonk. I was an elected for 8 years. I've had an experience with many committees, leading them or being a committee member. And what I have done by reading all your minutes, bylaws, and all the outcomes of your meetings thus far, all 7 of them, first of all, good job, you guys. You really built a nice structure for a committee. And now I can see that you're just about ready to take action and to actually craft policy. And that's what I have experience doing, and I would be honored to join you in this effort. I think we can do better as a community and as a group. I know we can do better, and I would appreciate a chance to be part of the process. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, my name's Allie. I'm interested in being on the CACH committee because I had never experienced the degradation of being homeless until you're homeless. Prior to becoming homeless, I was not judgmental towards people living on the street or, coming at you all crazy or dirty or whatever. I mean, we're all just human beings. So I have lived experience and continued lived experience. I live in Page Smith Transitional Housing on Coral Street. And I have a really strong voice. And I think that more lived experience needs to be on this committee prior to, instead of, I think you have a lot of people on the committee who don't have lived experience in this population. And, we're human beings, but we face a lot of hurdles that maybe normal everyday people don't see. The way people look at you, the way they interact with you. It's as simple as somebody, smiling and saying thank you, which I got a lot on DST. It makes you feel like a human being again. Because everybody wants to demonize us, and we're not demons, we're just people. I didn't ask to be homeless, I found myself in this position. And so now it's the fight back, and I think that I also speak for a demographic that gets overlooked. I'm disabled. So, I think about shelter beds that are on the floor, and When I came to Santa Cruz a year ago, or a year and a half, or almost 2 years ago now, I could do that, barely. Today I couldn't do that. So, homeless disabled people face the same challenges and then some. And I think that voice really needs to be heard, because without somebody speaking on it who's lived it, nobody knows. You go out and do field research or what have you, but I always wonder in the back of your minds, are you just like, oh shit, we gotta go deal with some homeless people? I mean, to be honest, I'm not saying that that's your guys' mindset when you go do it, but, it's something I think about. So I would be honored. I think it'd be cool.
Melanie McManus.
I have always been very interested in this issue, and as I noted in my application, I was a paramedic for a while, and having seen kind of the crises that develop as a result of homelessness, I think gives me a good perspective. However, as of today, I would like to withdraw my name from consideration in favor of Ali Suarez. I believe her voice is very important to be heard on this committee. But please keep me in mind for the future if there are any future openings.
Thank you. That's very good. I'm going to make a suggestion to you, and if you like it, that's fine. If you don't like it, it's also fine. Of course, it's your organization. A possibility is that the gentlelady suggested that we see if we can expand the CACH by a person or two. I wonder, since we have a person experiencing homelessness who is with us, and we have another person who is also deeply involved in the community and has sort of process and organizational experience, I would imagine that we may benefit from both of them being on this body. I wonder if the following would work for you, Ms. Soares. I wonder if what we could do is this evening, if we could perhaps elect Ms. Hawthorne and get permission to simply advise the city that we are expanding this body by one more person. And you have attended so many of our meetings and have such a wealth of experience, we would like to add you to the CACH as well. Would that work for you?
Oh, so rather than it go to vote, add Cynthia and then get back to me.
But with the express intent that we would not ask permission as much as tell the city this is our desire at this stage, and we're going to be expanding unless they have an objection to that. How would that work for you?
I'm not sure, to be honest.
I object.
Okay, you object.
Yeah,
So
I
you would
object.
rather us go ask the city for
I'd rather her
permission
be
to do
just
that?
Well, I think that it,
Excuse me. You and I are having a dialogue.
may I answer that?
Please do.
I think that it would be unfair to do it without a vote, and I think that if you went back to the city and asked them, that you'd only be asking them for one additional spot. When I asked for 2 members of the Santa Cruz chapter of the California Homeless Union, so you would actually have to ask for 3 additional spots. But I do think that it would be unfair to just give it to Ms. Hawthorne without a vote.
Very good.
I'm also concerned that she's sitting next to the lady who suggested the transitional encampments not be included next to schools.
I asked you a question, you got it, thank you, we understand, yes.
So, I'm very torn here personally, because I think they would both be amazing additions. My nomination for this round was based upon the notion that we are replacing
Yes.
members one for one, like Stoney took over for Ingrid, which is why I nominated Cynthia, because of her skill set and her background and ties with the community, to replace Katie. I absolutely want Ally on this catch too. But process-wise, if we're doing the process, I would not be voting for her in this round. So it's difficult, and I'd like to have a discussion about how we are moving forward process-wise.
I also feel like a homeless person should
Excuse
not be
me,
able to-
excuse me. Here's what we're going to do. Here's what we're going to do. You've been to a number of these meetings. You know I will always recognize the public for comment. I will always do that. Please don't speak without being acknowledged. I would appreciate that as a courtesy. I'll always extend to you. Yes.
So I'm just wanting to double check on the sort of the rules of the committee in terms of whether we need to go to the city or can we vote on it independently?
I believe that the membership of the body is established by the council. I believe that's what the bylaws are. I believe that's our charter, is that we're not in charge of whether there's 100 or 10 or whatever. That's the business of the city council, as I understand it.
One of the things that we've struggled with is, like, we've been doing 7 meetings and we've been trying to learn, and some people have more knowledge on some of the stuff and some people don't have so much knowledge. And I think it's great that there's so many different perspectives, but for somebody to start at this point, for me, it's how much, I hope they have a lot of homeless knowledge so that they can keep up with us. And that's why I have a little trouble. Ally, in the suggestion, maybe getting on, but I think she has so much knowledge and she's been in a bunch of different programs that I think she would add to any of the subcommittees. And I worry about somebody who does not have a bunch of homeless knowledge for our services.
I mean, is it possible for us to do a vote on the existing candidates that we have presented before us?
Yes.
And then, if we have to go back to the city council to get somebody added on, because I'm with Brooke, I'm sort of torn between these two candidates, quite honestly. Ally, in some ways, I feel like she's already part of the CACH. She's been here so often. And with her, Cynthia, I think she has a lot to offer, obviously, to us in terms of and just how these things work. And so we need more of that on our, I believe we need more of that on our committee. So I don't know if we could just vote and then go to the city council with whoever's remaining, if that makes everybody feel comfortable. We can go to the city council and ask for, to add another person to the committee.
Hi, my name came up in this, so I just want to say I don't know either Cynthia or Ally. I think it's awesome that both of them are joining. And I'm just wondering why you don't table the vote and go to the city with a request for 3 more candidates.
The answer to your question is we would like to see somebody this evening. And we can't get on the city council agenda until mid-December. And then they may or may not decide to do something, and then we may be in January. So, but that's the answer to your question. We're prepared tonight to see somebody.
I would like to ask that you proceed with a vote because I think that would be expeditious, and I think it sounds like that's in your process. I also want to say that I have always been dismayed at the number of actual homeless experienced people on the CACH. I think that I would like to also add, I favor Ally because I think that with her experience as somebody in a wheelchair,
Okay.
that would be helpful.
Thank you. Thank you. You got it.
Okay.
Fair enough. Ally, last one.
I just want to say about my application not being in prior to the body being put together, I didn't even know it existed.
Right.
There was no outreach, and I'm on Coral Street, so there was no, hey, this is going on, hey, there's applications, da-da-da-da. I didn't even know about it until after it was
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And it was accepted.
Okay, Ally. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Thank you. Cynthia Hoffman. 1, 2, 3. Okay, very good. Ally, you are seated, and Cynthia?
Yes, sir.
Go take your seat, Ally.
You and I know each other. I want to say thank you for this. And what we would not at all be upset with is if from time to time your good brain is here in our room when we're doing things, all right?
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you for your consideration. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, sir. So I'd like to make a motion for a resolution to increase the size of the CACH to increase the size of the CACH, and for us to determine the criteria by which we could nominate and elect the CACH members.
I want to be certain that I'm clear on what that motion is. This is a motion to the city council, essentially.
A resolution requesting that the city council accept a change, I guess, a change in our mandate, I guess.
Membership?
Yeah.
Okay. And with an indeterminate number?
Maybe we can talk about that right now, but we'll start with the
There's a motion. Is there a second?
There's second, is there 11?
For purpose of discussion, seconds for purpose of discussion, so essentially your motion is to petition the city council to permit CACH to appoint at its own discretion one more member. Would that be right, sort of generally got that right?
Well, I think it definitely needs to be a homeless person, and it definitely should not be Cynthia, and that's definite.
Yes.
So, as far as the Santa Cruz chapter of the California Homeless Union, Keith has told me that he doesn't actually have any interest in joining the CACH committee. So, to be specific, I want to put in the nomination for myself. I'm the president of the Santa Cruz chapter of the California Homeless Union. I kind of feel like at this point, a lot of y'all are trying to keep up with me and figure out what's going on in the streets. I live in an RV. I know pretty much everything that's going on, and I know everything that's needed. I have all the contacts. I don't think there's a better person sitting up there or sitting behind here that knows what's going on than myself. So that recommendation was not for Ms. Hawthorne. It was for someone from the Santa Cruz chapter of the California Homeless Union, and to be specific, me.
I am very concerned that anybody affiliated with the Downtown Streets team would do anything regarding policy, because those people are not being paid a minimum wage. This is an absolute violation of our basic labor laws, and the fact that it's gone this far is an abomination. And it just shows you that part of what's happening in this city is a kind of trying to get around some of the most important protections that workers, I'm almost finished, that workers, excuse me, I'm almost finished, I'm finishing my sentence, that workers and renters and lower income people have.
I don't think this motion precludes us from adding additional people with lived experience in the future. If the person that we nominate has lived experience, so be it. If the person that we nominate is someone who has already been nominated, so be it. I think that this, adding one additional person at this time, regardless of their category, will allow us to have some more irons in the fire with the subcommittees and do better work. And I also believe that if for some reason our election of allies was not proper, that by having this resolution passed, that we would be able to fulfill our wish of keeping her on and allowing another nominee like Cynthia.
All debate having ceased, we will move to a vote. Those in favor signify by raising your hand. Those opposed? I'm not sure. You went fast. Let me do it again. All debate having ceased, we're going to vote. Those in favor of the motion, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, motion passes.
Motion being to expand the number of individuals on the CACH by one additional member with the CACH determining the nomination criteria.
Exactly.